Hello and welcome to Who Wore It Better, where I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. A quick programming note before I dive into this week's review. Next week there will be no Who Wore It Better or Independent Wrestling Weekly. I'll be on a bit of a break from work. I'll be doing some sightseeing and touristy stuff in jolly old London town in England before I dive headfirst into the events of Wrestling Media Con in Manchester the weekend of September 8th and 9th at the Bullers Exhibition Center. Go to wrestlingmediacon.com for tickets and info for that. So yeah, no Raw and Smackdown reviews, no indie wrestling news next week, but I will make up for it with a special all-in review with myself and my broadcast partner from the West Coast Wrestling Connection, Blake Chadwick. He and I will be giving our thoughts on All In, and you'll see that review next Wednesday. So on with the reviews now. The boos are out in full force for Roman Reigns, who's called the most polarizing figure in WWE today by Michael Cole. That really shouldn't be a descriptor for the guy who's supposed to be like a top star, supposed to be the top like savior of the Raw brand or the Universal Championship, but it worked for John Cena before, so you know, don't fix what ain't broken. It's also super confusing because people will boo him when he makes his entrance and like when he, says some things on the mic, but then he'll say other things like, I'm gonna be a fighting champion, and people cheer for that. So it's very mixed messagey kind of thing going on with Roman right now. Roman answers Braun Strowman's social media challenge, and then Braun makes his way out. Roman cuts a very heel-like promo saying that Braun doesn't know what it's like to be at the top of the mountain and all that stuff. Roman tells Strowman to cash in tonight, but Strowman says he's going to wait until Hell in a Cell. They shake hands. Dolph and Drew come out and they issue a challenge to Roman and Strowman right then and there. Baron Corbin, the new acting general manager, makes his way out. He makes the match that will take Raw to the next level, just confirming the match that we all kind of assumed was going to be happening based on that promo that happened moments before he showed up. Corbin then makes a match for himself right now against Finn Balor the Man. That's his full name now. Finn Balor the Man, not Finn Balor the Demon, Finn Balor the Man. It's a feud that will never die and the rest hold that will never end. Seriously, someone needs to make like a composition or collage of all the times you see coming out of commercial. You see Baron Corbin just working that chin lock, working that chin and arm lock. That's all he seems to know how to do. Anyway, the match doesn't go too far before Corbin DQs himself with a chair to the gut of Balor. Then he gets on the mic and says, oh, by the way, it's a no DQ match. One more chair shot, end of days. So Corbin wins here against Finn Balor. This is actually probably the strongest Corbin has looked in several weeks. I've said in the last few weeks that Corbin as the Constable of Raw was an authority figure who had no authority. He was toothless. He was very hard. It was dumb watching him. He was a very dumb character. But now that he finally has this power as the acting general manager in Kurt Angle's absence, it's finally like I said last week, he needed to be more effective in order to be taken seriously. So this is what happened, on Monday. It was very heelish, as to be expected for his character. It was a step in the right direction. It might be a small step, but it was still definitely in the right direction. And so Corbin as acting GM, I'm far more a fan of and more interested in now than Corbin the Constable who couldn't do anything. We got a couple of video packages throughout the night from legends and Hall of Famers talking about the Undertaker Triple H match happening in Melbourne, Australia. My one question with it though was, why was Christian shooting in a giant empty parking lot? Dana Brooke takes on Sasha Banks in singles action here. Dana is unofficially, according to the storyline here, fighting for a spot at the Evolution pay-per-view. Apollo is worried about Dana's chances against Sasha since Dana is such a loser. It's a brief but competent match where Sasha wins by making her tap out of the bank statement. And then Apollo and Titus are frustrated here, and Apollo consoles Dana in the ring with a smile, as he wants to do. So, where will this go with this relationship, this budding relationship between Dana Brooke and Apollo Crews? Will this eventually lead to the dissolution of Titus Worldwide? Will we possibly see the first on-air interracial couple on main roster television since Noam Dar and Alicia Fox, which I think makes it second all time? I'm very intrigued as to where this is going to go. Seth Rollins makes an open challenge for the Intercontinental Championship, and Kevin Owens answers the call. He cuts a great promo before the matchup, talking about how he misses Sami Zayn and how much different things would be if Sami were around. He also trashes the city of Toronto before the match begins. Great match here, easily the top match of Monday night. Great athletic stuff here between both guys, and Kevin Owens' character, his trash talking is just in full force here. KO pulled the stunner out of nowhere and got a holy shit chant for that. Then the match ends when he goes for a moonsault and misses. Seth hits the stomp to win the match. Great stuff here by these two guys. And afterward, after the commercial break, Kevin is doing kind of a sit-in the middle of the ring, sitting in the chair, kind of thinking to himself, and he just goes, I quit, drops the mic, and he walks away. And so that's pretty interesting development. He kind of pulled a Batista, just saying he quits and walks away. I can't imagine he would wait this long, but it'd be kind of cool to see Kevin and Sami Zayn for coming back from injury. The two of them come back to Raw to wreak havoc on the roster and stuff. Or maybe we'll just see a straight up repackaging for Kevin Owens at some point in the future. I mean, obviously, I don't think he's not really quitting. Anyone who thinks he's really quitting the company is kind of delusional. So I'm curious to see where they're going to go with this and what Kevin does when he comes back. We get a backstage promo from Dolph and Drew that's kind of redundant from what they said at the top of the show. Then we go to a match between the B Team and the Revival, non-title. It's a nice match here. I love seeing Revival doing the whole ring cutting tactics that they really made famous in NXT when they were part of that show. We almost get a repeat of the fluke roll-up victory from last week, but it is thwarted. Shatter Machine to Curtis, Axel, and the Revival win, handing the B Team their first loss since their renaming of the B Team and when this epic role they've been on. The Revival cut a promo afterward calling the B Team a disgrace to the tag team division. They're coming for those tag belts. The Revival looked great here, probably the strongest they've been in quite some time. Even stronger, I think, than when that 3-week stretch where they fought Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley. And and the B Team not looking too bad either. Even in defeat, it was a really great match. Elias is in the ring playing the hell out of that guitar before he runs down the city of Toronto for a bit. One thing I noticed between Raw and SmackDown this week was that Toronto got shit on a lot by the heels. We don't see a whole lot of regional town insults that much anymore, but they really piled on Toronto for some reason this week. Anyway, he's talking about Toronto. He's cut off by Trish Stratus. Now here's a question for you. Besides something involving Stephanie McMahon, when's the last time we've seen an intergender interruption? Elias burns Toronto some more and Trish burns him, saying he'll never win the championship. Then she plugs Evolution because of course she does. Elias kind of plays the role of the backwards male chauvinist pig here, talking about how with her and Alexa Bliss at the pay-per-view, maybe a lingerie pillow fight match, and then he says, you want to hook up with Elias, but I don't date women in their 60s. It was a great burn, but she slaps Elias in the face. Ronda Rousey comes out with Natalya, which bleeds into the next segment of the night, where it's Natalya versus Alicia Fox. So now you've got Ronda and now Trish Stratus are in Natalya's corner, and you've got Alexa Bliss in Alicia's corner, and they're joined by Mickie James, who knows a thing or two about Trish here. Alicia may not be the best wrestler in the world, but her mannerisms and her quips in the ring are just a joy to watch and listen to. Natalya wins the short and sweet match by making Alicia tap out to the sharpshooter. Nice victory and a nice kind of way to win the match 2 weeks after the loss of her father, the late Jim Neidhart. After the match backstage, they're joined by the Bella Twins, who literally can't even when talking about Evolution, and they announce that next week they're going to be back in action, the two of them that is, against the Riot Squad. Curious to see how that match will go. Bobby Lashley's in action, but against whom, you might ask? Well, Baron Corbin gets on the screen, and basically he's still sore from last week's loss to Bobby Lashley, and he says, tonight, Bobby, you're going against two people, and it's the Ascension. Cue the Scott Hall shaky fingers. Ooh, the Ascension. Maybe if the team was booked like an actual threat and a competent team over the last year or so, maybe it would be more of oh gosh, I wonder who's going to win. But you know the story here, folks. Bobby Lashley just whomps them good here. And so, that makes you wonder, with Corbin kind of stirring shit up with Finn Balor and Bobby Lashley in one night, how many different angles is he going to be involved in as GM? How much shit will he stir up, being involved in multiple angles, pissing multiple people off? Will he have a posse, a stable around him, some reliable heavies? I would like to see that. It's been a while since we've seen an authority figure with the kind of backup, the kind of manpower to back up what he says. And like I said, good small baby steps in the right direction for Baron Corbin as the GM, and I think they get a step in the right direction. Hopefully we'll see them build on this more in the weeks to come. Dean Ambrose takes on Jinder Mahal in a battle between two of the latest guys who will follow the add muscle grow beard method of getting a push in the company. It's a really solid 5-minute match. Dean wins with the dirty deeds after countering the Colossus. All you budding indie wrestlers out there, you can work 10, 15, 20-minute matches all you want, but the real key to success, I think, is being able to work a really good, tight, compact 5-minute match and tell a good story, like what Jinder and Dean did on Monday. If you can do that, then things are looking up for you. So there you go. Main event time as Roman and Strowman take on Dolph and Drew. Roman works all by himself for the first part of this match. He finally tags in Strowman, who just stands still on the apron, and that allows Drew and Dolph to beat up Roman for a lot longer. The match gets thrown out, and it turns out Braun Strowman not finished with poor Roman. And so the 3 beat down Roman. Rollins comes in and trying to help out, but he gets dispatched up pretty easily. So now it looks like, to counteract the 3-man group of the Shield, you've got Braun Strowman, Dolph, and Drew as a trio. I certainly wouldn't have pictured that grouping, and it might take some time to get used to it, but there we go. So that's the story of the week, is that they turned Braun Strowman heel. It's it's just insane to me that you've got a guy who you want to push as a babyface, but it's not really working 100%, even though he is, objectively the top merch mover in the company. Meanwhile, you've got this guy who became super over organically, who started out as a heel and just became a babyface just from sheer brute force, literally. And he's got a following, he's got a catchphrase, like he's over. He may not move as much merch as Roman Reigns, but he's definitely got some good catchphrases and good marketing behind him. And so to try and make the fans cheer for the guy you want to be the babyface, you turn the actual, de facto babyface heel. And that's confusing to me. I don't think that's going to work in the long term. It's just another case of the company seemingly digging its heels into the whole Roman Reigns experiment and saying no matter what, in no uncertain terms, we are pushing Roman as like the top guy. We want to be the babyface, we want to be the conquering hero, even if some of the fans might disagree with that mindset. Just from a pure storytelling standpoint, I don't think it's like nothing's really evolved from what they had, the two of them had a year ago. It's just now the stakes are a little bit higher because the title is involved. I think it would have been really interesting if the roles were reversed, to have like a face Braun Strowman and a heel Roman Reigns fighting for the championship, as opposed to what they had last year in their rivalry there. So Braun being a heel, I think is questionable. I don't think it's going to work long term. I think it's going to be an issue, what we have now on SmackDown, where the fans want to cheer the supposed heel more than the babyface, and that's just totally topsy-turvy. Before I move on to SmackDown, this week's Who Wore It Better is sponsored by my good friends over at SeatGeek. It's an app you can download for your iOS or Android device that gives you ticket deals for shows like concerts and sporting events and WWE, you name it. You can find a ticket for the right price using SeatGeek. Go download the app using the link at the top of this description, enter the promo code REGRET in the Accounts tab, and get $20 back on your first ticket purchase. SmackDown opens up with the New Day celebrating their 5th Tag Team Championship win at SummerSlam. And speaking of 5 times, out comes the 5-time WCW Champion, King Booker. He anoints Kofi and Xavier with special regal names, but Big E doesn't get one. That gets him upset. They have this weird stare down between, Big E and Booker, and he says, you went full Saxton, and then they were mad at each other for a bit, and then Booker just kind of broke the ice, and oh, we're happy again, and everyone does spin-a-roonies and stuff. It was a pretty entertaining opening bit, just kind of an excuse to bring Booker T out because he was a 5-time champion. Wade Keller made a very excellent point on Twitter on Tuesday about this, saying, every episode of Raw or SmackDown is somebody's first exposure to WWE. So imagine being like a kid, like a 13-year-old kid, like when I started watching wrestling, and watching this your first episode of SmackDown, and you see that whole segment, and you have no idea why this dude is dressed as a king and he's knighting these other 3 dudes. Like, what a weird first experience that would be. Which brings up an interesting question. What was your first experience watching a WWE show? What were your first memories of watching WWE or just wrestling in general? Let me know in the comments section. Triple threat tag team match as the Bar go against Anderson and Gallows and the Colognes. Holy crap, the Colognes are still around? Could have shocked me. It's a pair of tag team triple threat matches between this week and next week, where the winners of those 2 matches will face each other to find out who will face the New Day at Hell in a Cell for the tag titles. First of all, hold up. There are at least 7 teams on SmackDown right now. Again, totally shocking. Also, it seems kind of lazy that now we have 2 pay-per-views in a row where it's the same basic, tournament process to determine a number 1 contender for the tag titles between SummerSlam and Hell in a Cell. Kind of lazy to me. It's a pretty good match though. Cesaro and Sheamus win after some blind taggery near the very end. They'll be taking on the winners of next week's match between the Usos, Sanity, and the team of Rusev and Aiden English. And it turns out Aiden English is the one who lobbied to get them in the match. What a pal! Jeff Hardy comes out with his special RKO-themed face paint, and he brings up last week's chaos when the match they had ended in a DQ and just chaos in the tech area. He calls out Orton to the ring, who responds. He says he wants to destroy Jeff, but will not get into the ring on Jeff's terms. Jeff responds by saying he's going to take him to hell in Hell in a Cell at the pay-per-view. It should be a good one. It was nice watching Jeff while we knew him. Last week, Peyton Royce beat Naomi in controversial fashion, so would lightning strike twice when Billie Kay Kay takes on Naomi this week? Turns out yes. More iconic chicanery at the end, allowing Billie Kay to pick up the win. Kind of a sloppy match at the beginning. I think there was like some hair being pulled out of the roots at one point. It was kind of hard to see, but that was kind of the highlight of the whole match to me. Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella come out to talk about The Miz and Maurice leading into their tag team match at Hell in a Cell. They're interrupted by Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega, who runs down Daniel and Brie and makes a challenge for a match between Daniel and Andrade right here tonight. And Daniel says, gosh, if only there was someone who could make this match official, and we're expecting Paige to come out, but she does. It's kind of a funny moment where Daniel kind of feels embarrassed. Then Paige makes a belated entrance and makes the match official. Quality match here. The Miz shows up kind of sneaking in there to interrupt, but Daniel thwarts him at first. He gets the yes lock on Andrade, but then while that's going on, Maurice jumps Brie out of nowhere, beats her down, and that distraction allows The Miz to get in the ring, beat on Daniel Bryan, DQ finish there, and then The Miz and Maurice just each beat up Daniel and Brie to end the segment. A skull-crushing finale on Daniel for the exclamation point. The devious heels be devious. A nice elevation of the storyline between the two sides here. Probably one of the stronger segments of the whole night. We get a really strong backstage promo by Charlotte where she says she will not apologize for being who she is and as successful as she is. It did come off as kind of a heel promo though, and that I think will plant seeds for something that I was thinking about at the end of the show, which I'll get to in a minute. AJ Styles makes his way to the ring. He says that Samoa Joe is not man enough to take the championship from him. He calls him out to the ring. Joe shows up on the big screen. He ends up calling AJ's wife, Wendy, and says, I'll be visiting next week, presumably during a back-to-school barbecue on a Tuesday? That's kind of weird planning for that. Anyway, after this segment, they officially announced that the Jeff Hardy-Randy Orton match will be in a Hell in a Cell. And based on that graphic and the language that they're using for this Joe AJ match, makes me think, wait a minute, is AJ Styles Samoa Joe not going to be in the cell for this feud? Like, what the fuck? Main event time, a Smackdown Women's Championship rematch as Carmella challenges Charlotte. Some pro Becky Lynch chants, big pro Becky chants early on in the matchup here. Carmella busts out some impressive moves during this matchup, another dive to the outside like she did at SummerSlam, and a Hurricane Rana from the top rope. Charlotte wins the match with her trio of big moves, spear, natural selection, figure eight. Match is over, only to be jumped from behind immediately afterward by Becky Lynch, and it's received well. Becky gets on the mic and says, I'm taking my title back, you bitch, throws the mic down, gets the biggest pop of the night. It was crazy. Someone backstage has to be seeing this and saying, maybe we picked the wrong person to be the heel in this scenario. Between like what we saw here and how that was received, and Charlotte's promo and how it kind of like leaned toward the heelish side, and the fact that the commentary after the beatdown sounded mighty sympathetic to Becky Lynch's plight, when usually, Tom Phillips, the main guy, the main play-by-play guy, is supposed to be the voice of like, here's what the story is supposed to be. But it was really sympathetic to Becky. Makes me wonder, are they headed in that direction where they're switching heel and face alignment between these two? Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. This week, I have to go with the Red Show. Raw wins this week. I think, every match, save for maybe Lashley versus The Ascension, was entertaining and interesting and left a lot of openings and possibilities for where things can go. I thought there was a lot of interesting character development for guys like Baron Corbin and for Apollo Crews. Like I said, Rollins and Kevin Owens was a terrific match. The stuff with Elias and Trish was cool to see as well. Revival versus B-Team was kind of a surprisingly good match, as well as Jinder Mahal and Dean Ambrose for that matter. The one thing I had a problem with Raw was the ending with Strowman's heel turn. That's just kind of problematic in a lot of reasons, a lot of ways. SmackDown, had great moments as well, but I couldn't help but notice kind of the copy and paste nature of the booking as of late, between the repetitive tag team tournaments and the nature of the call-out promos, 2 in one night, and both heels going, I'm not gonna fight you in the ring, with Orton and then Joe later on. Sometimes these SmackDown episodes do start to blur together at times, at least in my opinion. But let me know what you guys thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better in the gimmick in the upper right hand corner of the screen. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com, and check out Patreon.com/WrestlingWithRegret for exclusive perks and bonus content. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.